Hello, everybody. It is February 1st, and this is Adam Gersten with uh, Storytellers Live. Today we have Brian Dow with us, but let me go ahead and tell you a little bit more about what we're doing. So, Storytellers Live is here to kind of capture some of the great stories that take place in LARPing. And one of the things that we've been doing here is reaching out to different storytellers, people that have been around LARPing that have, either been on plot or played characters, been, a part of entertaining, and are here to, share some stories, get people excited about LARPing again. Right now things have kind of died down with everything that's going on, but, we know that there's a big crowd of people that are really interested in getting in and going back full swing, whether it's new players that have never played before, that have heard about it, that are just curious and want to, get involved, to some older players that have been playing for 10, 20, 30 years and just love hearing the stories and get involved and might actually, want to come out and play. So today this is actually sponsored by LFG Nexus. LFG Nexus is a social media platform built and designed specifically with gamers in mind. So if you like talking about gaming and things like that, that's what LFG Nexus is about. You can feel free to go check us out at lfgnexus.com, where we've got apps on both the App Store as well as the Play Store. But yeah, so today we have Brian Dow, and I'm going to get into him, talking about him in a minute. But just to again let you know a little bit more what we're doing is, we're going to be talking. We're going to be learning a little bit more about him, about some projects he's been working on. I've actually known Brian for quite some time. Unfortunately, things have kind of, happened, and we haven't spoken in roughly about 20 years until a couple minutes ago backstage. But so, I'm really excited to talk to him, learn more about kind of what he's been doing, some of the excellent work. I mean, I've seen some beautiful weapons. I've heard some great stuff, and really look forward to talking with him. However, before we get started, I do kind of have to pay the bills. So let me go ahead and play this real quick video for you.
People everywhere are discovering how 5G can change their lives, but Apartments.com has changed millions of renters' lives by helping them get into new homes. So, we already knew all about the power of 5G. We've had it in every town and city for years. And also 6G, and 4C, and 2R, and 7L. What else would you expect from the site with the most listings anywhere? Apartments.com, the most popular place to find a place. Hello.
Okay, guys, and so with that, also keep in mind that you can use the chat area to ask questions or talk. What part of this is supposed to be interactive, so that we can, have a little bit of fun, maybe ask some questions that maybe I missed, or that you just might be curious about, maybe certain secrets or what happened with certain characters, things, that you might be interested in. So feel free to use the comment section and do that. Also, we're going to do something new. I actually do have a link. We have created a what do we call it? A Google form where we would love to get some feedback. And so I just went ahead and put that in here now. You'll be able to scroll up. Feel free to go ahead and fill that out. Tell us how we're doing. We've been doing this for a little bit, and I just want to kind of make sure that we are, people are enjoying it. So let me go ahead and play the video to introduce Brian, and we'll bring him on. Welcome, Mr. Brian Dow. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jim. Doing well. Thanks for having me on, Adam.
It's a pleasure to bring you on. Just for those that don't know, we used to run around back at Solar a long time ago, and I haven't spoken with Brian in quite some time, but I'm eager to catch up and learn more and kind of see.
Yeah, it's been a couple decades.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's still kind of almost like yesterday that we were playing. I remember like one of the famous things that you were kind of, or I knew you for, was you'd run up and attack a caster and like slide and start hitting their ankles with your. I think it was.
I was well known for the baseball slide in to get close to people. It's probably not the best thing to do, and I try not to do that anymore. I'm a little old for that now, but yeah, I've known for a few of those antics.
Awesome. Well, that's great. So let me ask you this, because I'm not sure if I knew this before, but how did you get started LARPing?
So I got started in '94. Really, it was through friends of friends. Chance ran into a couple folks, and they were talking about going out to an event and needed to build some weapons for that. And went ahead and said, "Hey, that sounds great." It was really, the hitting people in the woods with plumbing was really what got me out there. How could I turn that down? That sounded great. And really end up staying for the role play. Came out in '94 and just never looked back. So it's been a roller coaster ride. Sorry, I apologize. I'm trying to turn my phone off.
No worries. I've been trying to do that with mine as well. So your friends brought you out, and did they do anything mean? Like when my friends originally brought me out, they kind of dumped me in the middle of nowhere.
Those stories are not uncommon. My wife has one she likes to share like that. But no, it went pretty well. I mean, I was with those guys for a few events, and then they ended up fading out, and kind of I switched gears, made a new character, and hooked up with a group of folks I'd met there, and kind of made it work from that point forward. No, it's been something that just they were pretty supportive. I've seen people a lot of times. Yeah, they bring friends and go, "Nope, we're just going to leave you here." My wife Sheila, her friends, brought her along. Said they're just going to go camping. Didn't know anything about LARPing at all. We're just going to go camping, and brought her out to one of our early Everhate events. I don't know if many folks out there watch this know what Everhate is, but it was an undead horror-based campaign that was pretty terrifying at times. And they went, "All right, you're on your own. Good luck," and literally just abandoned her. So that does happen. I don't encourage that. I like to have more of a supportive role of helping people into LARPing, but in the past that certainly did happen.
Awesome. That first of all, that's crazy that they did that to your wife, especially for a little bit more of a horror type of a thing. But she still plays, doesn't she? I mean,
she does. She's actually very involved. Yeah, we're kind of a team, really. It's the two of us, kind of in terms of the crafting side of the world. We work very well together with the crafting side. But even in the LARPing and running things, she's now on the board of the group that I'm working with now. So and she's on the plot team. So luckily, I get to play finally. For a long time, I've been running a lot, but I'm trying to play for a little while and kind of get back on that player side. But no, it's she's been awesome, and it's been great working with each other. In fact, that's how we met, was through LARP. I did not know her when she came out there, but that's how a lot of people do. That's the great thing about LARP, is it brings people together. I know so many marriages and families and kids that all come from LARP, and that's amazing. It's a great community that's generally been very supportive of everybody involved.
Well said. I mean, that's absolutely true. I know many marriages that have come through LARPs and that sort of thing. It is a great place to meet some wonderful people. I have friends, I'm sure you do, that I've known. I actually started back in '94 as well. And I've been pretty consistent up until a couple of years ago. Some of the LARPs I was playing kind of took a little bit of a break, but I definitely understand. Meeting other people. That's what it's about. That's a lot of the fun is also sharing these memories, which is why we're here, because we love to hear some of the stories and stuff like that. But let me ask you a couple other questions. Like, so you're talking about you're actually getting a chance to play a character now.
Yes.
How do you determine what type of character you want to play? Like, kind of what's the process that you go through to determine your stuff?
Yeah, I've had several, main characters I've gone over the time, years. The first one really was kind of based on stats. I was new to LARPing. It's like, all right, let me build something I think is gonna be effective, and let me something I can be combat effective as. And that's back from my baseball slide days of taking out casters and whatnot. But and after that, I decided I wanted to switch it up a bit, and I went something that was more me. I went something that kind of fit me a little better and kind of was more who I was, and ended up playing a ranger and kind of spent all this time in the woods, and that kind of felt more natural to me. And then now, the last time around, it was more about what's good for the group, So, we were starting over and with the whole group, and so, all right, what theme do we want to go with? And it was more off of a theme. We looked at a map and, all right, where do we want to be? What looks interesting? the swamp looked good, so we picked the swamp, right? And that's our theme, and kind of built it from there. And how do we build a group based on lives in the swamp, and all of our characters are kind of somehow based in that kind of way, and it's really kind of helps pull the whole group together.
That's awesome. Actually, I've been arguing with some people that I think a map is a necessity when you build a map. Is necessity when you build a LARP. It helps people identify and create a space.
Absolutely. I think you have to. I mean, it's really one of the first pieces you have to put out. Any kind of text document out to a player, so it needs to be a map. It's right now, we've got a small area that we work within, and then we're going to expand that out, and we're kind of to allow that to grow. But any really LARP that's lasts for any length of time has really stuck with maps and worked that way, because you've got to be able to relate to where you are. And I think that's a real smart move for any LARP to do that.
Definitely, yeah, it definitely helps solidify an image and a concept. But so, let me ask you this. So you played some like high fantasy types of LARPs. Have you played anything else that's a little bit different?
I really haven't played a lot other than fantasy LARPs. I played a few different LARPs out there in the fantasy genre, and that's always been my favorite. But that's something it's on my to-do list to break outside of that. There's some great steampunk LARPs in the Southeast. There's a Wild West that I want to check out. Calamity. There's a lot of them out there with different genres, different fields that I want to check out. I mean, that's something that Sheila and I have talked about. Is we want to try to get out and visit some of these other LARPs about once a year or so. Everyone's been kind of real locked down because of the pandemic, but once things start to hopefully start open back up and start flowing a little better, I as much as we can, I want to try some of these other ones out, because just because fantasy genre has been my niche doesn't mean that's the place that I'm going to enjoy the most. In fact, that's what we encourage players a lot to do, is try other LARPs, go out there and see what fits you best. It's don't try to put a square peg in a round hole if it's not working. Find one that fits you.
Right. No, I completely agree. Here doing LG Nexus stuff, we're obviously trying to think of I just lost the word. We're here to support everybody.
You're a resource. Yeah.
Yes, as a resource, we're agnostic. Sorry, that's what we were looking for.
There we go. I got you.
Our goal is to really just kind of help promote LARPs in general. We get as many resources for the different LARPs and let people go and choose and find what's right for them.
Absolutely.
I personally have played one or two futuristic LARPs, and there was a lot of really interesting stuff, especially once you kind of bring a phone and play. It definitely changes things. Yeah. But
I've always had the craving to play a post-apocalyptic LARP, something like a Fallout kind of style LARP, something like that. That's always been kind of a fun video game genre for me that I've enjoyed, and so I've always kind of wanted to try that in the LARP scenario too. And I haven't got around to it, but there's a few out there certainly, and something we want to give it a shot soon.
Awesome, very cool. So kind of going back to some of your characters and stuff like that, do you have a particular favorite character that you really...
Yeah, probably the one that that was more like me. I really connected. Character's name's Kyril. It was a ranger, lived out in the woods, and I've always been someone that enjoyed that woods aspect of LARPing. I've always loved that we've always LARPed out in the very very wild area of sorts. So we've had a lot of woods and trails and places, and so it seemed to connect my true spirit. I feel more at ease and comfort out there when I'm playing that type of character. And to be honest with you, the first one, I played, ended up falling into kind of the greedy, mage kind of role in the sense, and eventually it was, what's best for me. And when it went against other players, that was fine for a while, but eventually that started to weigh on me a little bit. I've certainly played plenty of bad guys over the years, on a staff role, a plot style role, but I can disconnect from that pretty easily. For me, playing, not the nicest of guys as a character was hard to transition from. It was hard to, the bleed over, as a lot of people call it, really was a bit of a headache for me.
So do you feel that people identified with your character instead of as you? Is that kind of what it means?
Yeah, I got that feeling at times, and I'll be honest with you, not to be mean in any way, but some of the actions I took made people cry. I mean, literally, I made a kid cry once. Admittedly, he had just told the story about how he had murdered this mage and blah blah blah. It turns out he didn't realize he just told me about murdering my teacher, and the guy sitting next to me also was his student. So the two of us looked at him, kind of nodded. Oh, okay, great, that's great. As soon as we walked out the door, killed the guy, drug him off in the woods, and the guy was crying 3 minutes later. I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be some killer here. They was killing people, and we're just paying the back for you, and after that, it kind of started to get to me, and every time after that, I kind of just a little notch, another notch towards going, this is not fun for me anymore. And so I kind of transitioned more of a support role. I enjoyed playing a character that was there to help. I had made another character, on another campaign, that could transfer down, and I said, all right, I'm going to shelf this other guy and bring in the other character. And I enjoyed better just playing someone that fit me better. And I think that's important for players too, just figure out what do they want to play, because some people can play that. Some people can play the dark and evil menacing character and be totally fine with it, and that's great. It just wasn't me. It was just too much emotional bleed over, I guess.
I definitely understand. I know for me, at certain points in my life, I played certain characters, and it was kind of based on certain things that were going on, as a way to get some, to kind of help deal with things, whether they were good or bad. Did you find that happened kind of with? It sounds like that's kind of a little bit of what you went through, with these characters. That's
yeah. It certainly is. That's one great thing about LARP and about these characters is I find usually there's an aspect of you in every character you play in some capacity. And usually there are exaggerations of one's character. Whether you're playing the knight and you're playing the ultra good side of you, or you're playing playing the guy that's the sneaky rogue. You're playing the little shady side of you. They're all aspects of ourselves, and so it's a way to explore yourself and see what you're comfortable with, and in that aspect. And you start pushing some limits in places. You're like, yep, that's not me. And it's okay to back off on that. If that's not who you want to be, it's not who you want to play, don't do it. Do what you're comfortable with. That'd be my best advice in that sense.
Absolutely. But you talked about you had that encounter with the kid that got emotional.
Oh, yeah.
There have been times when you've gotten emotional due to certain things that were.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit. I'm a very emotional person, really, honestly, and so it does definitely get to you. And that's the best way to LARP. You should get involved and get connected to what's going on, to the point where if something sad happens, you start to cry. Anger is an easy emotion. Anyone can get angry. But it's allowing yourself to get really connected and get emotional at that point. If things don't go your way and the story turns and something you really cared about, ends up, being impacted in some way, hopefully you're not crying because, I'm not winning the game. Hopefully it's because I really feel for what's happening, and hopefully I feel for the story and for these NPCs or whatnot. During the Ever Hate years, it became my goal for a while, and it kind of fell into it, and not in a mean way, but it was my goal to make someone cry every event. If I got saw tears, I knew I was connecting the players. And a lot of times that was with the story, not necessarily being mean and scary. That was more talking about, a lost love that can never be reconnected, and they get connected to that, and you really pull players in. They'll get excited over exciting stuff, but if you can connect them emotionally, they're sold. They're in hook, line, and sinker.
That's absolutely what I've, from my experiences, from running encounters to just everyone that we've talked to, excuse me, they want people to have some sort of emotional reaction.
Absolutely.
Because that's how you really know that people are kind of playing and invested and that sort of thing. And that's when you can kind of truly let go and really enjoy what's going on around you.
And that's the escape. That's truly, when you're that involved, you're not thinking about the outside world anymore. That's the real escape people are looking for. That everyone talks about, that 48 hours of not thinking about what paying bills and whatever else you got to do on Monday morning when you get home. You're kind of lost in that world for a little while, and it's a nice relaxing release a little bit. I've known a lot of people that they take medication for all kinds of things, and LARP lets them cut back on that, or they it's a release to the point where they can feel they don't have as much anxiety and much stress in their lives. I've seen people really kind of help themselves with that.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this, and just because this has happened to me, do you ever have LARP dreams where maybe you see something happen, or maybe you see an upcoming conversation that we might or might not be looking forward to kind of play out?
Especially early on, when I first started LARPing, and I hear this all the time from brand new LARPers, you have the super vivid dreams. You wake up and you can remember every bit of it, every word, and it's like you were just there. And I've heard of other stories, and I swear I've had a couple myself come true. It's one of those you kind of have this prophetic LARP dreams, and it happens, and it's kind of crazy. But yeah, early on, I did a lot. I still have LARP related dreams now, but they're not nearly as vivid as when I first started. The first few years for LARPers can be pretty magical in that sense. I think I'd say about half the people I've had that discussion with go, "Oh yeah, absolutely, I've had those dreams," and it's a pretty common phenomenon.
Awesome. So let me kind of going back to also talking about newer players. Is there something that you'd recommend, or like? Obviously our goal is to help bringing new people into the fold, but is there any advice that you would give to a new player?
I think the most important thing for a new player is having the guts and the drive to go out and get involved. Don't be afraid that, people are going to think you look stupid or you said the wrong thing. And just throw all that out. We all feel like that, honestly. Even the people who played for almost 30 years feel like that on a daily basis. But it's the ability to go up and go, "Hey, I want to help," or "Hey, can I go with you?" Or, it just ask to be part of what's going on. And that's the best way to get involved, because players who come out to LARP and then don't have a good time are the ones who are sitting on the stone wall just watching everybody going, "Man, I wish I could be part of what's going on." You can't. Get up and go over there and get involved. And that's the best way to do it. It's up to you to involve yourself.
That's actually a different perspective than some of the other things that people have said. And that's definitely a great idea. Just being able to, just we're all here to have fun, and if they don't recognize you and they're older players, I mean, they probably know most people there, so they'll probably recognize that you're probably a new player. And they can at least take you along or say, "Hey, maybe here's a newbie module over here," or they can kind of help you get settled, because I promise that they want you to come back and have fun.
Oh, absolutely. Newbies are the lifeblood of any LARP, and yes, in a business sense, of course, that's important, but also just in a player sense, you need that fresh ideas, this fresh people in there to really keep that game feeling alive. It's the same, 30, 40, 50, 100 people, doesn't matter how big your LARP is. If it's the same people that never changes, it's going to be pretty stagnant. You've really got to, be able to bring new people in and rotate through that. That's how you get new plot teams. The same, 20 people don't want to rotate through plot, every 4 years. You've really got to have this new, fresh ideas coming through. And it's a way to encourage them. And like you said, like a new player module, something like that, I think is important for all games to really have, a focus on new players coming in, have a strategy for how do we make sure that they did have an entertaining time? How did they, have asked questions if they were kind of confused or had any issues? Make sure you break through those barriers I talked about, where they don't want to ask questions, they want to go sit over on the wall. Hold them out. You really got to try to pull them into your game and get them involved. It's and that's really a job of experienced players. And the idea is to really get your community in the mindset of encouraging those players to get involved. Pick up a newbie and invite them along your module. So see someone not doing something, hey, you want to come along? Invite them in. Have fun. End up having more fun inviting more people along.
Awesome. No, I mean that's great. I definitely agree with you 100%. So when it comes to, again, new players, is there something that you would suggest to them on kind of maybe how to create a backstory where they're not saying they're the lost son of the king, and some crazy stuff over here?
You touched exactly the first thing I was going to say. Is don't make it grandiose. You're always going to be let down if you make this huge grandiose. I'm the lost son of the king, and I'm owed this artifact sword, and you're never going to get what you want. You're going to be let down. Start small. And really the smallest backgrounds that just have some basic information about what where you come from, what's important to you, where, what will you do, what we won't do. Have some of those basic ideas, ready to go coming in. But from there, I like to let the game tell me who that character is. The character should change and advance as the game plays on. other players should have impact on you. The story should have impact on you, and it should allow you to change that. It's why, like starting out a new character, having an idea how you want to spend your build and your skill points, or however you're going to build this character is great. But also allow the game to kind of influence you. Be malleable to that. And realize, oh, hey, because of the storyline, I'm going to go learn this other skill I never thought of, and takes you to a whole nother path, and can involve you in other things down the road. I mean, I absolutely had that. I at one point, my ranger had no plans of ever being a blacksmith whatsoever. We had this big storyline, and someone had to make these special wooden arrows, and no one seemed interested enough to do it. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'll learn. And so I picked up the skill and said, hey, I'll go, spearhead this and get people involved in this. And from there, I got all kinds of, interesting connections to be involved in other plot lines, other storylines, because I went out and learned a new skill and was willing to go out and get involved with it. And that's really what I think players need to do, is start small and get ready to build within the story.
That sounds like great advice. Just being open and letting it kind of, give you ways to move forward. When you create your characters, do you ever give them certain types of like personality quirks, or I've seen some people that they're blind, or people do different types of things to kind of give themselves a little bit more of a challenge.
I've definitely seen those kind of things, and those are impressive. I've never gone as far as being blind or deaf or anything like that. I've done a couple things with NPCs. I haven't been brave enough, honestly, to do that as a PC. But I definitely give myself some weaknesses, and it's important to have those limitations on yourself. There's some things that you're like, nope, I won't do that, or I won't go there. My current character, avoids certain things. Like, nope, I don't want to go near anything undead. I don't want to go anything near that's kind of spooky, scary. Nope, that's a no. Nope, not doing that. I'm going to avoid it as much as I can. And it's some way to kind of put me in a direction to overcome that at some point, or never to. But it's important to have those kind of basic elements, I think, when you start.
Awesome. So kind of going back to your experience on plot, if someone was looking to consider joining like a plot team, is there any sort of things you would suggest to them, like in terms of what not to do or what to do, creating a good encounter?
It's important to always keep in mind how the players are gonna interact and feel through that encounter. It may seem like a really cool idea. I'm gonna do this thing, and it's gonna be so cool, and it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna play this awesome thing, and I'm gonna have these great stats, and that's not fun for the players. That's fun for you. And it's really important for plot to come in and go, hey, I'm giving up my time for 6 months, a year, 2 years, however long you're doing it for, to entertain the players. And what would I have fun with? What if I was playing, and how do I make sure they're having that fun too? A lot of people fresh off plot have these huge, grandiose kind of things, and you need to hook them first. That's the beginning. The beginning is you just need to get them interested in the story. And then you can make it grandiose and kind of build on that. I've had plenty of times where I've written these huge, elaborate stories and go out and pitch it, and everyone's like, "Nah, thanks." And you put all this work into something that didn't get any kind of interest, and you can't keep pushing that. I've done it in the past, and I've seen plenty of plot people who just keep pushing, and it just turns players off. And you've got to find something that interests them, and then work that in there. Now later, maybe across streams. One thing I always tell plot people, you have a half a dozen, how many plot lines you got going. That's great. Start interlacing them. Have them start to intersect in places. That's how it makes the world feel real. It makes it feel natural when things connect. Not everything in life is a single line. Everything interlaces in some way. And if you can kind of interlace your world, you can kind of pull them into a story you really kind of need. You may have painted yourself in a corner. You need them to get involved in this, but they don't have interest. You can get them there through another path, and that's always a good way to go.
Have you ever run into a problem with an encounter, or maybe even a plot line where it's like, uh-oh, what do I do here? And kind of how'd you deal with it? I'm trying to think of a specific one in particular, but yes, it's certainly,
that happens. I mean, you can definitely paint yourself a corner. I mean, it happens all the time where players will come up with an idea and it just completely defuncts your entire plan. Like, all right, this is going to be a 9-month plan and they're going to have to go through all these steps. And then someone goes, well, I'm just going to do this. And you're like, son of a, I just didn't think about that, and that's okay, and I think you just got to be able to roll with the punches when those kind of things happen. It's sometimes you got to just rework it. Sometimes you recycle that. Maybe there was 6 months of plot you just unfortunately skipped over. Great, relabel that something else, slide that over, and reuse that work. But don't force players down your hardline path. I mean, that is probably the most important thing I can tell any plot person is that a linear forced plot line is never the answer. You're going to always have better results from your players if you let them, be able to play within your boundaries. I'm not saying you got to let them have the world, but they've got to have room to move. And that's the most important thing for anybody running a plot team or running a plot line. That is.
So I completely agree. I think that, having a base idea for kind of where you want to see it go, but still leaving options, because you're right. A lot of times I've run into things where like players come up with better ideas than where I was going with it. And
absolutely.
So I'm just going to run with that, let them kind of write it a little bit.
Absolutely. I'll admit I've absolutely used players' ideas on how to finish because we've been stuck. And, and sometimes that's the answer for plot teams is if you don't have an answer where to go, turn around and ask the players. And I mean that in an in-play way. I mean, certainly have an NPC who truly feels torn and doesn't know which way to go and ask the players for advice, and instead of them coming to the NPCs, do it the other way around. And players love that. Players love to feel like they're helping guide, the NPCs in the story of where it's going. And then that's the easiest way to solve that is put it in the players' hands. They will find an answer. I guarantee it every single time. They're going to find some way to solve that problem.
Awesome. Now, let me ask you this. Is there any specific type of encounters that you like to run or don't like to run?
Yeah, be honest with you, I've of course been involved in running story for 20 some years, and I love story, but I've always honestly come down to a mechanics guy in terms of, like I've always been the one that everyone's looked to. All right, Brian, how do we make this field battle feel, like something more than just people lined up on a field and running into each other over and over again? I hate that. That's okay. That's fun for 5, 10, 15 minutes, but like, all right, we're done now. I love to come up with like encounters and even if it's just out on the field, that's fine. But where there's tactics they've got to go through, there's steps to it. There's something more involved to it. You really need to, have and not be a puzzle, but something for players to figure out, something for them to overcome and achieve during the battle. Of course, have some combat, but field battles shouldn't just be combat. There should be story involved in them too. Everything should have story. Nothing should be pure combat ever. And that's where I like to come in is how do we make this more involved? How do we, encourage players to work as a team? That's always something I like to try to do is come up with a way for it's not just one group of people that can do it. It's going to have to be the casters are going to have to work with the fighters who are going to have to work with the volcano. I'll bring up the volcano. Have to work through all this and come together to solve that problem in the end. And that's what I like to come up with. I mean, stories are great, and I like to do that with stories too. But it's always been my thing is the mechanics of how do you make a fight feel natural and real.
Sounds good. Tell me about the volcano.
So we had an encounter where they had to fight in a freet, kind of a fire-based, genie style kind of creature, and we wanted to how do we kind of bring this to life? Because trying to bring a full-size genie flame thing is kind of a bit difficult, but I want something to get people's attention. So we built the volcano. We built a frame out of PVC. It was about 6, 7, 8 feet tall. Built it, wrapped around there. But we did great stuff. Sprayed down on a mesh. Plastic mesh there with lights in it, and so we had that going on a fog machine. So when we got all said and done, there was lights coming up out of the volcano, fog coming down, looks like lava with lights in it, looks like fire coming down. Nice. But we end up having these different aspects of that genie. So they had to go through one aspect of it that was more of the physical fight, and I had played that where I made suit that was all made out of foam that had been cut up and painted in black stuff, and I stuck glow sticks down through it, so you saw the red glow coming through the cracked foam, and so it looked like cracked lava rock and magma kind of behind that. So we had his physical form. We had someone playing the magical form. It was all more done up in kind of flowing robes and whatnot. So, but you go through these different aspects and go through these different pieces, and so and I'll be honest with you, I'll kind of detour for a second here. It's something that LARPs kind of have to do, because back in the 90s, you could have a field battle. You just ran against each other, and we loved that. That was great. Nothing beat that. But now that video games have gotten to where they are, and other forms of entertainment have gotten to where they are, you've got to compete. You've got to get their attention. And the new players now, are not impressed, for long with just a little bit of combat. You've got to really get their attention. Light, sound, that's a big one. I would tell any plot team, if you're not doing sound for big encounters, field battles, big story modules, you got to start looking into that. Just a little bit, like in the cave, you get the dripping water and things like that. That helps immerse people in things so much more. And those just little things really help. And sometimes it just has to be a light effect, don't shine lights at people, but light effects and things like that, light up what's important, that'll help players. Don't hide the important thing on the field in the dark. Light it up. Let them know that's important. Let them know to come and get involved in this. Come mess with that. Don't leave it in the dark. So that's where I was, that's the kind of stuff I love. I love trying to bring some of that technology in there and utilizing that.
Yeah, no, that actually sounds really cool. In fact, I was playing a LARP a couple of years ago, but it was a futuristic, I take that back. It was a real-time but alternative, sort of thing where, just the world kind of changed itself a little bit. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with something called L-Wire, but basically it's kind of like a string sort of thing, but it's got a little battery pack and it'll glow a specific color. And what we were actually able to do in the counter was we were able to make one of the big bad guys like red, and another one was blue, and another one was green. And so in this particular game, we actually kind of had a tank one, kind of go into World of Warcraft or things like that. We kind of had a tank one while beating on another one and keeping another one outside of 20-yard range. Otherwise, it was kind of healing or doing stuff to the other two. But having, these lights and sounds and stuff like that, really kind of changes.
Absolutely. It really, it brings people into that current world and current feel of what they're kind of doing, with video games and everything else. Even tabletop nowadays. Tabletop is now technology-based, interactive. People have, screens on their tables, or at least using a TV involved, putting maps up on there and stuff. You've got to start, find ways to, I don't want to get away from, I don't want to turn LARP into tabletop or anything, but, but you've got to find ways to immerse people into the world they're in. And those are great tools for it.
Absolutely. So got to ask you, just because I see some swords and maybe a hammer or so behind you, and from my
understanding, up there, but yeah.
And I understand that you guys actually now build weapons as well, like you have a company where you do this.
Yeah, we do. I've always LARP started with like everyone did with PVC and pipe foam, and it got the job done. But let's say about 2015, 2016, some friends decided they were going to try to get these kind of weapons more common and accepted by LARPs in the area. And so LARP we were in, we went and play test them for a year or two and kind of tried them out, and we found that they are a lot safer. The EVA with the fiber cores and whatnot, and it really comes down to weight. Duct tape and PVC weapons, they'll hold up. I mean, you want something that you can throw in your monster town and it will last for 2 years, and then leave on the rain and everything else, and the heat of the trailer and all that. That's what you're looking for. But if you want something that's going to be lightweight, looks great, and and it doesn't hurt people as nearly as much, I really kind of recommend people, and it doesn't have to be my weapons. I really recommend people really getting into the newer style weapons, because I really think it's safer. It's really a safer way to go because it just lightens them all up. But really started with right before I went on plot, and back on one of the many times back in 2017, and just before I did, on the way home, I lost a duffel bag off the back of my truck. I had literally all my weapons in
Oh,
it. I must have lost a couple dozen weapons, for just NPCs and for PCs and for the group and all that. It was a bunch of stuff, and most all of it was like, all right, I don't need places right away. I'm going on plot. I'm good here. And then during that time frame when these weapons really became popular and really started coming out, it's like, all right, I've really got to look into this. And I had a weapon called the Sword of Seasons, and it would change, the abilities would change with the seasons. In the summer, it would have ice abilities to fight the fire creatures, and vice versa. In the winter, it had fire abilities. And so I always had wanted a weapon that would it would kind of change with it. Literally look different. So I was going to make 4 different swords. So I reached out to someone to look into doing that, and I realized how much it was going to cost to do it. And I'm a crafty kind of guy. Let me see if I can figure this out. And so I started making a couple of my own weapons and realized, hey, I can make this work. This isn't so bad. And there we go. Mountain Bear Armory was formed. And so, now we do custom weapons. Sorry, my mic is getting knocked around here. We make custom weapons for people in probably at least half a dozen to almost 10 different LARPs right now. I got weapons in right now. Made cosplay weapons, shipping all over the country. So it's kind of been fun. It's LARPing turned into a bit of a side business for me. It's certainly not paying all the bills, but it's definitely still a side gig, and it's something that helps, and there's plenty of that for people in LARP too. And I want to encourage people that, because one thing I always encourage is buy locally from local crafters. You want costuming, you want leather armor, you want weapons. There's someone in the community, I bet you, that can make that, and will probably do it even cheaper from other places you can do it and make it better for you. But that's something, even on my own personal sense, I some of my favorite pieces that I've got from past characters aren't magic items or anything left over. It's the pieces that people have crafted for me. I've got a leather kidney belt that a leather crafter, Trey Justino, made for me that I absolutely love, and it's one of my favorite pieces. I've got a few other friends, that have been made things for me. I just those that's what I remember, and that's what I hold on to for memories for these things, is things that people have made for me. I know some people keep tabards and things that have been crafted for them as keepsakes. That's what's important. A stick that was painted up, whatever, it was a magic item. Who cares? That's just something to play with for a short period of time. But those kind of pieces are important, and you can get these important pieces crafted by local people, and it really kind of helps put people to work locally too, which I'm always for.
Right. No, I'm completely big fan of that. If you could help, support someone else in the community, please seriously consider doing that.
Absolutely.
It only helps build your own community.
And it's harder to get what you want too. I mean, it's that's one thing about LARPing. Everybody wants the things in their colors, or they want the symbol, or they there's always something that's special to it, and that's the way to get it done. I mean, sure, there's people out there that can do it, but start internally, start in your own communities, and then kind of branch out from there. It's always what I would recommend people do.
Absolutely. So, but going back to what you were just talking about, which I think was just really interesting. You were talking about some of the things that you have that are very sentimental and stuff like that. I personally have, a bag just off camera of things from the last 25 plus years that, mean something to me. They're not always weapons. Actually, most of them aren't. They're little trinkets that look like nothing, and you think they're garbage.
Yep.
But there's sentimental, sort of meaning to me. But so you're saying that a lot of your stuff is a little bit more weapon based,
I meant like
fungible.
A lot of times it's costuming pieces, So I got, from Jeff Baker, maybe a couple leather pieces too, I keep a couple other stuff, but it's some of those are some of my favorite things, they kind of carry on from a character on too. Sometimes when you go from one character to another, you kind of want to carry something along with you, and a lot of times those kind of pieces are something that you can carry on with you. It's not sometimes you can't carry on certain colors and all that kind of stuff with you, but these other pieces I think is always a good way to do it. But I get what you're saying with the trinkets and whatnot, especially if it was something that was important to you and your character you carried for a long time. I mean, after you keep something on you for years, it's kind of party in a way, and I get that, and that's kind of what those are to me, because it's part of the gear to it. One thing I was, particular character I played for the longest time, I tried not to get attached to magic items except for a couple things. So I didn't quite have a lot of that. So it was more about the personal, gear that I carried. But I understand where you're coming from with those kind of things too, trinkets and whatnot.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. in your personal life, I guess, do you spend a lot of time hanging out with the people that you've made as friends as LARPs? Do you find that, like for me, probably at least a good solid 80% of my friend base are people that I've met through LARPing and have just continued relationships.
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably closer to 96%, but yeah, absolutely. I certainly am not as I don't know. I don't have been going to LARP based parties for a long while. I've got a little old for that probably, but no, I certainly socialize with people outside the game, and really all my friends are that. My group that I travel with now, I run with now. We spend holidays together. We've gone on vacations together. They at times are more family than family. In that sense.
Wow.
And I think that's the way it is with a lot of people. And really, you spend that much time with people, you're going to have that bond. Even people that I played with in a group 15 years ago, I still feel close and connected to. They still feel like family to me. I show up for their 3-year-old's birthday party. It's those kind of connections that just don't go away. You have the same thing with plot teams too. Every year of a plot team, everyone kind of becomes almost brothers and sisters, and they kind of become a bond, like a family. I think LARP is one of those things you go through it together and you kind of have this tight bond. It's I'm not gonna say it's like going to war with other soldiers, but that's certainly something different. But something close to that, in terms of something out there to really kind of bring people together, and make them friends for life. And I think LARP does that on every aspect, and absolutely. Yeah, everyone, just about everyone in my life, in some capacity, I met either at LARP or through someone that I LARPed with. That's that connection. I mean, I've gotten jobs, from those connections. I've gotten roommates through LARP, and like I said, I married my wife, someone I met at a LARP. So, of course, I've been pretty involved. I've been involved in LARP for 28 years. So, yeah, it's been a big chunk of my life. I started when I was 16 years old. So, my entire adult life, except for about 4 years where I took a break, where at one point I bought a house, got married, got a new job, had a kid, adopted another kid. It was a pretty busy year. So I took a few years off. But other than that, it's been pretty constant LARP for me.
Awesome.
But yeah.
How old are your kids?
So my youngest is 17 now.
Okay.
So just had their birthday last Friday at a LARP, actually. So it's a family affair. They came along to LARP on their birthday. But yeah, so I've got a spread of ages there a little bit. I've got a mid-20s and a teenager. But yeah, it's almost an empty nest stage. I'm getting there. But it's great. I like the connections we've gotten for that.
Mm-hmm. So no, I definitely understand what you're talking about. I guess one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up, the kids and stuff like that. I actually, I guess technically I'm almost empty nester too. My daughter's about to turn 18 in about 6 weeks, and she's been dying to go to a LARP. Just obviously with everything that's going on, it really hasn't happened.
I get you.
But do you have any suggestions for if other parents were to see this about having their kids go to a LARP and what to expect, or kind of how to let them be, anything like that?
Well, I'm all for kids at a certain age to be involved in LARP. And it really depends on the LARP. Some LARPs are very kid friendly and are geared more towards having kids involved, and some LARPs are not. And definitely pay attention to that. There's a reason why LARPs put that. Don't push those limits, because there's a reason behind those limits. Is the first advice I'd give. Second is go and be involved with your child. If your child wants to get in LARP, go with them. You might find you have a lot of fun with it too. But also, I started at 16, and that's kind of that's the bare minimum. Should I have been out there by myself at 16? Probably not. And I don't know if I'd really want 16-year-olds running around by themselves today, at a LARP. So go with them. I think that's the most important thing. Make it a bonding thing. Make it something you guys can have fun with. That was something that I had hoped, that my father would find interest, because he was big into fantasy books and all that when I found LARP. And I was like, hey, look at this thing I found. And it wasn't his gig, and that was okay. But at least we both had that kind of fantasy connection there and could kind of talk, in a similar sense of, similar topics. But I've seen so many parents and kids have that great, just bond over that. I've seen entire generations. I know, a daughter, mother, grandmother, all that LARP together, and multiple LARPs. So it's really, it can be a family affair. Absolutely.
So I got a question, just because you had mentioned that you said that your father was into fantasy novels and stuff like that. Did he encourage you, or
No, honestly, quite the opposite. And I think that was, I think he thought he was going to take me away from the family, I guess, or something like that. But I'll be honest with you, at 16, I was already trying to get away from the family. Every 16-year-old is, and it was my bastion of sanctuary I found out there. LARP was. So, it certainly didn't cause problems, but it gave me that outlet, and honestly, again, it's it was better for me to be at a LARP for the weekend than probably out somewhere, underage drinking or whatever else I could have been doing, so, spending my younger years LARPing, I don't think was necessarily a bad thing at all. I think it probably did pretty well for me.
So speaking of which, because that's also some of the other things that we kind of look at here is like, how has LARPing helped you? Obviously, you mentioned, finding the love of your life, getting married, roommates, a little bit of a side hustle type of thing. But, has it, helped you to get jobs using any of the skills that you might have learned from LARPing, or, something like that?
Well, absolutely. I think the number one thing for me, and I've heard this a lot with LARPers too, is the ability to get up and speak in front of people. Public speaking is something that is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially coming to LARPing. And you get a lot of wallflowers there, but you get shoved in front of the Duke or whoever, and you got to speak for yourself and say why you did what you did. All of a sudden, you kind of get over those things pretty quick, and you realize, what? If I can do this in front of all these people, well, I can get in front of a class of 30 people at school, do that. Before LARPing, I was the kid at the front of the class, mumbling with my poster board and kind of, trying to hide behind the poster board the best I could. And, now after, just a few events of LARPing, I had no problem getting up and getting in front of people and being able to just speak clearly and say what I had to say. But beyond that, it's relationship building is really what you learn in LARPs, and to me, that is probably the most important thing, how to, work with people that are different than you, because you meet all kinds of folks through LARPs, and if you can, figure out how to make all that work, you can make it work anywhere. You go out to to an office environment and kind of learn how to play the game and learn how to, everything's a game. If you look at it that way, everything's a LARP in a way. You go to the office, we're all kind of trying to play a part there and figure out how to make that work. And that kind of plays right into it. It really does. But that confidence overall, I think, is what does so well, at least for younger folks who get into LARP young. I think that's always what I've seen the best thing come out of it for players.
That makes sense. I definitely have seen that as well and experienced it. Again, being thrown in front of maybe not the Duke or something like that, but just, and especially from being like on a plot or entertainment committee where now you've got to wrangle people and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
to get them somewhere.
Well, and certainly that's, running a plot team and whatnot, managing a game. that is absolutely on the job training right there, and so if you can manage a plot team and get through a weekend and be at all somewhat successful, you can manage a team in an office environment easily. The hardships that people go through at a LARP trying to get from one end of the event to the other and put on a good show for everybody is nothing compared to a daytime job, in my opinion. And if you can get through that, you can do anything.
Absolutely. So, just kind of, on that note, I guess what we're talking about is project management, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of ways is, being able to keep a schedule, get people ready and on time. A lot of times there's makeup or prosthetics and things like that. Is there a particular NPC that you have that you're really a big fan of?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd say my favorite NPCs, let's say in general first, have been ones that, that players, can interact with, the bad guys and all that, it can be fun to get, be scary and all that stuff, but that's never as enjoyable, in my opinion, as being something that can connect with players. I think one of my favorite NPCs ever, I played back in the Ever Hate years, And it was a game where, with spirits from 3,000 years ago had been pulled in, to the current time and whatnot. And he was a knight who had, been on a mission to accomplish something, and he got pulled from that, died and got taken from that, before he could finish it. But that was probably my favorite NPC because I got to really connect with players. He was really where I made people cry the most in that game. But he allowed me to connect with folks. He's the NPC I wouldn't get in costume until about 3 a.m. to play him, and I would go and find players, and we stayed up till dawn talking about theories of what was going on in this world and how they could get accomplish those things. But I played that NPC much like a PC. I played them, with that same kind of, passion and feeling that most PCs, we play their characters with. And that allowed me to really connect with players. And that's really why I think he ended up being one of my favorite NPCs to play, because I didn't feel like I was playing stats. It felt like I was playing a character. And that's how I think most people should try to get their NPCs to feel and be able to connect with players.
Interesting. I got a question. When you've been on staff, I know you said that currently you have, you're playing a character, but did you ever find that, people...
Don't get me wrong, I'm still on staff. I'm not running story.
I'm sorry.
I'll never get away from staff, I think, but yes.
No worries. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Nomenclature. Just, one of the friends I've been talking to recently, when he says staff, he refers to being like on plot or
No, I get you. I was more laughing at the scenario. But yes.
But what he was saying is, anyway, my question is, do you ever see that there's certain players that will gravitate towards NPCs they've never seen before intentionally just to get additional time or, attention from players?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are always players going to be, they see a plot person. Well, I'm going to go interact with that person.
They're going to run up to them and,
Yeah. That's going to happen, and the way that I think that generally handle that is you kind of see what they come to the table with. If they want to approach that NPC, sure, great, but let me tell you what I need, and if they don't can reciprocate in some way with that NPC and make that kind of connection, you move on. You're going to have players who do that, and that's okay. People are going to be aggressive that way, but you've got to give other people that chance and try to find the people that fit the story, fit your don't target people you're going with a story, but you need to find people that make sense for what you're doing. But yeah, that definitely does happen. But I find that if you start talking about the story and talking about what you want, they'll weed themselves out. They'll figure out, okay, this isn't quite me, or you find ways to incorporate them, but you incorporate others too. And kind of, sure, you can come along. How about you find me some people that fit this, and you kind of put them to work for you, sure, thanks. Go do some legwork for me, and then come back and make this a little easier. And you get to stay involved because you helped, and that'll help everybody.
Awesome. Or you've now built up a bit of a rapport with that person. Is there anything that you've ever done that was just like really crazy, or maybe like kind of in hindsight, maybe like I probably shouldn't have done something? And it could be anything from, like, to be honest, I was in a rowboat wearing some chainmail, some pretty heavy armor, and that probably was not the best idea. To something that was just maybe like, even as a PC, like, holy crap, we got away with that, or something.
Yeah, I got a couple. I'd say one that kind of reminds me of the rowboat one. Kind of remember this one. I played an NPC for a module once where I was a sea elf, right? So the whole module, we're kind of working our way down towards the lake and working our way down towards the lake, and we made sure they were kind of a little distracted right by the docks there. And while they weren't paying attention, I took my boots off real quick and whatnot, and just things I didn't want to get wet. And so we go out onto the dock with the players and go, and this is at night, by the way, too. And so so we're like, oh, do this thing, I'm going to go do this thing, and and I just leap right into the water. I just in the dark dive into the lake, boom, disappear. And I purposely went down deep and tried to go, all right, I'm going to stay under so they just think that they don't know where I went. And I was trying to quietly swim far enough away they didn't see me. Mm-hmm. What I didn't think about was I had a net sash on around over my shoulder and down to my hip. And as soon as I dove in, that slipped off and wrapped around my legs. And I couldn't kick it as soon as I went underwater. So now I'm in the water. It's dark, and now I'm trying to literally underneath the water, trying to get this thing, my feet freed up so I can actually kick back to the surface. And a little scary moment there. Yeah, didn't quite think that went through all the way. That was my younger years, but it made for a great effect. And literally all the players were like, do we have to jump in too? And it really got their attention. And it really was kind of a fun way to go with that one. So yeah, I guess water for both of us is avoid the water, or be very more careful with the water. The other one I'd say kind of got away with, I guess, a little bit is, and I kind of looking back going, yeah, I probably should have done that. We hung an NPC once in the woods, and looking back, going, man, I'm glad that didn't go wrong in any kind of way. I mean, don't wrong. We had climbing harnesses, and we had all the safety gear and stuff for it. But it was a cool encounter. We kind of lit it up, and the big super bad guy there had the NPC that everyone loved, and they all go down to try to save him or whatever, and and he has a chance to say something, and then boom, he drops, and it looks like that he's now being hung, and so. But looking back at it, going, I don't think I would approve that again. I'm surprised I got approved for the first time. But the fun thing with that one was we took a long strip of red LED lights, and we used to light up eyes for greater undead and things like that. So let's say scary creatures in the woods. So we took the string of lights and then kept cutting them and splicing in more wires. We spread them out, and we had about a couple 100 yards of this, and we ran it through the woods and attached to a battery pack. So same time we did that, we kicked those lights on. So all of a sudden it looked like the whole hill was lit up with greater undead, and they were like, yep, we're getting out of here, because I couldn't have them standing around while we go, all right, let's get our guy down now who's tied to this tree. I needed them gone, so that was how we did it, so we rigged up the woods and made it look like all of a sudden we had 40, NPCs in the woods, when no, I had 2 guys and a string of lights, so. But the first part, I was like, I'm glad we didn't hurt anybody, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you guys literally had gallows and
well, it was off a tree. It was that kind of scenario, but it was one of those, and what we found a perfect spot. And that's something I really think is really one thing I want to always stress with plot teams too, is use your environment, look around, use your environment to your advantages. What we did is we found a tree that had this big kind of hole up underneath it. So it didn't look like it was that tall, but we allowed us to be able to drop and also put lighting up underneath it and kind of really light the scene without seeing any of that. You found the right spot. For example, one of my favorite encounters ever done was at Indian Springs State Park. They had drained the lake. It was in the winter. I think it was January or something like that. And the lake was dry. Only time I've ever seen this. It was the craziest thing. And immediately we're like, all right, how do we take advantage of this? And so, the plot team had a thing where they wanted to take them through this desolate area and whatnot. So we marched players at night through a dry lake bed, basically, which was an area they've never been able to see, never been able to go to before. And we kind of took them in an area where you couldn't really get to, and kind of brought them up what would normally be just a swampy area, and brought them up that area into another place, and had some great encounter already set up. But they got to walk through this wasteland because it just, it fit the scene so well. And you just got to take advantage of the situation you have. Never had that opportunity again. We had one shot at it, and we used it. So.
Yeah, no, I've never heard of that at Indian Springs, and actually Indian Springs is my first event.
Yeah.
But,
well, it's the only in Georgia. It's the only cold weather LARPing site. So I mean, if you want heat, so you want to play November through March, or at least early March. That's the only place you got, because the only other viable spots I know of are 3-season sites. So
absolutely. Let's see. I guess another question I was curious, kind of going back to again, kind of real world. Obviously you got proficient in kind of building weapons, using these, again, some of the other skills that you've learned, obviously, speaking is one of them. I'm having a hard time speaking myself right now, but, obviously you've been able to, build stuff with your hands, stuff like that. Do you, use that with other types of crafts and things like that you like building? Has it been something that's been able to be, again, just very something that's been fun, or that you kind of used?
I mean, I've kind of gotten known to be the builder of within our community, in terms of if we need for example, let's see, just a couple of events ago, we did a big wall. Basically, we took a pink foam board. We mounted, we mounted handles to the back of it so someone can control it from behind. And then we put, carved what looked like stones into it. And there was a lock and, a big skull kind of thing to stick into it. But, it literally can be done in a couple hours of, carving some foam and boom, stick it all together. But then we had the wall move, so, it was real simple. Someone went behind it. As soon as I put the key in, the wall started to move. And, there was a time issue now all of a sudden, and they had to, get going. But building those kind of pieces has always been a lot of fun to me. I started, woodworking, just, personal hobbies on the side kind of thing, but then found ways to kind of incorporate that into LARP. That's how I do foam weapons. I really, with these, you glue them up in layers and whatnot. And you kind of got a brick of foam with a rod in it, but from there you got to make it look like a sword. And I work it like it's wood. I have a whole wood shop, so I treat it. So I use all my woodworking tools. I use the compound miter saw and the router and the belt sander and all that kind of stuff. And you work these things just like you would any other project. The neat thing is because these are props, and certainly with swords are made of foam, but all these other props, foam and things being lightweight is your benefit for a dozen different reasons. But it also makes them easier to work with too, and it's something that really a lot of people can work with without having to have a lot of those tools. Also, I mean, the weapon stuff that certainly is a crutch, to be able to get through that with all those power tools. But to build these big props, you don't need all that stuff. I remember we built a coffin that was strapped to someone's back once for a monster. Again, used like 1-inch pink foam board, built a coffin out of it, and just took an external frame backpack and wire tied it to that, had him put it on, and it's this big, crazy looking monster with this coffin strapped to his back, and it just made a great, horror monster for everyone's like, and we put little LED lights inside and a battery pack. So again, put a skull on the coffin kind of thing. So it glowed red and all that. And, and that didn't take much. And literally tape, a little bit of paint and some foam board and do all that with a razor knife, and so anyone can get out there and start making these things. You just got to get out there and try. And the more you do, the better you get at it. That's the best advice I can give anyone with the crafting is you're not going to get better until you try it. And if you got questions, ask. There's always someone out there who will help give advice on where to go with this stuff. And that's the one thing I found with LARPers and in this community as a whole is that people want to share what they've learned and they want to spread that and want to carry that on. People generally aren't keeping their secrets. Anytime wants to sit down with me and ask, hey, how do you build weapons? I sit down and tell them. It's better for our community to know how to do this safely than for me to keep those secrets to myself. I'd rather people, what I've learned over the time, I've made literally hundreds of weapons since 2017 when I started. I've literally made hundreds. So I've gone through a lot of trial and error over that time frame. And yeah, early on, there were a lot of weapons that looking back going, gosh, I wish I hadn't done it that way. And I went back and fixed a lot of them because they just needed it, but you learn what we can do and what you can't do and what the right answer is. And by the end, you'll be crafting things better than anybody else if you stick with it.
Sounds good. So where do you see LARP going in the next 5 years? Now, aside from the whole COVID thing, let's say that wasn't, you talked about phones a little bit in technology, but kind of what do you think is going to come around?
Right now, I think LARPing is making, at least in my community, is making a transition from really a bit of an old school way of looking at LARP and thinking about LARP and moving to more of a new way of doing it and trying to include people more. There seemed to be a lot more animosity and kind of your team versus my team kind of stuff. Never wrong. I mean, you're still going to have that in some LARPs, there's still going to, and that's good. You want a little bit of, tribalism in some sense in that way with players, but you want them to kind of work together too. But really, I think I've seen LARPing go to more of an inclusive and try to change the rules to make sure that everyone can take part in what's going on. I think over the years in the past, LARPing has not done a very good job at that. It's like, hey, if you can't do it and you can't do it, get the hell out. We don't need you. And not everywhere, but a lot of LARPs were like that. And so I think a lot of them now have kind of shifted gears to try to really change with the changing times and try to be more inclusive, more involving of everybody as best they can, and try to make these games, where everyone feels involved. Something, I know, our game and another one recently, removed eeps from them, because that was a point of contention. And it was a bit of a competition that was kind of on an out of play level between players. It was trying to get level, the leveling was such an out of play competition. There's no need for that. There's enough competition in the story and play that you don't need that. So, we got rid of that. I know other games are doing that too. And I encourage more, find ways to make it so everyone feels like they can be part of what's going on and play an equal role in what's going on.
Sure. That's not actually something we encountered. So with some of the Larps that I played a little while ago, we did have, eeps just like, back at, Solar and some of these other games. And it just got to a point where it was just too much trouble tracking it, stuff like that. That was one of the issues. The other thing is that there was a perspective problem. People felt like they weren't getting as many encounters, getting as many opportunities to get eeps and stuff like that. Whether it's true or not, there was a perspective of that. And so
Absolutely.
It just, because, obviously, the grass is greener over there, or they see these two or three things, but they don't realize that nothing else happens then the rest of the day. And it just became an issue, and it just became, easier. Why not? Just let people, gain their level or half level or whatever it is per event, for showing up and being a part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. We looked at a lot of different solutions. We came up with probably half a different ways to counteract that kind of stuff. And, you give eeps back for crafting, and you give, all these different ways of participating in the game. If they'll participate in something, some way, we'll give you eeps for it. But then in the end, we figure out we're just working really hard to save something that doesn't need to get saved. You just remove it and move on. And then you can focus on the game itself. You worrying about the mechanics piece of that and go, yeah, you're going to get your levels, you can get your new skills, because that's part of LARP too. I mean, let's be honest, it's getting the new spells or getting some more damage or whatever new ability. That's fun. That's always, you got to have goals. And so you want players to keep advancing. You don't want them to trickle along because they don't feel like they're getting anywhere. So if you guarantee they're going to get somewhere, they're going to have more fun with it. And that's kind of where we ended up. And I hope that's where a lot of LARPs are going. It's more about, let's just all come together, tell a story, have a good time, and be together, and I think that's going to be, really key coming out of the pandemic. And as people are starting to feel more comfortable coming together, you're going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff. I don't think people want to get in these big, arguments and fights and scream at each other anymore. I really don't. I don't want to get in a yelling fight with anymore. It's once you get through the last few years we've all gone through, we just want to go out and have fun. No one wants to get in a screaming match with anybody.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Definitely agree with that. So we were talking about do you guys? You talk about inclusion. And I think that's great. Absolutely. Definitely more players, more people, different things that they bring to the game. It's awesome. It only benefits the game.
Yeah.
With that being said, is there a specific way that you think that we could help bring more people into the community? I mean, we're trying to with this whole, vlog thing we're doing in LG Nexus and that sort of thing. But, is there anything else that you think that can be done to bring more players in?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that myself actually recently. And I think that maybe what I'm going to say is probably not the way that most people have handled these kind of things, but I think it's really the right answer. So I, like probably 99% of LARPers out there for the last multiple decades, have kind of hidden the fact of what I do. It's kind of the dark secret. You go to work and you got these weird bruises, or you didn't quite get all the makeup, out of the corner of your eye or something, and you're trying to explain this why I go camping once a month. We've all gone through all those stories. And probably because I got to an age, I hit about 40, and I got a point, why am I trying to go through this song and dance at work all the time? And so I got honest, and so, you start telling them, yeah, I help run a tavern, so I kind of eased into it. I run the kitchen at a state park, kind of thing. And then I'm like, yeah, screw it. Yeah, I make weapons and I hit people in the woods with them, and we have a great time. And you know what, though? Some of the people, around the office, go, hey, that sounds really cool. In fact, I ran into another LARPer at the office, didn't know he was a LARPer until I said, hey, I make weapons. Like, really? Yeah. And we found out we play two different LARPs, and it's someone you probably even know. Still from LARP you played. And so, but it was like, oh, that's cool. And we had a connection there. And in fact, people will eventually find, if they're honest about their hobbies and what they want to do, there's other people who will find that interesting and want to be involved. And well, hey, tell me more about that. When we keep these kind of hobbies and these passions secret, how are people going to know about it? You've got to tell people. And I don't mean that just go bring people to my game kind of thing. If you involve the people around you, and you'll have closer connections to those people too. And so, and if they don't want to come work, that's fine. But there's no reason to hide, what we do. There's nothing wrong with what we do. In fact, it's one of the better hobbies, I think. It's physical, it works your mind. There's nothing wrong with this. Be honest with people, be honest with family and whatnot. And if they don't like it, who cares? But I think that is the best way to get people into it. Talk to people, be open with what you do. And then beyond that, I say, it goes back to the newbies. You've got to treat them right. You've got to be there to help them, feel like they're included and they're involved. Start with the community and make sure that your community is one of supporting the players. And if people have a question, they don't get looked down upon for not knowing the answer to something. Everyone should be eager to help them and answer that question. So they're advancing those players along. And I think that's what's going to be the better thing for LARP going forward.
Sure. I mean, a lot of these ideas and concepts are very foreign, and only limited people kind of really follow or keep tracking them, that sort of thing. And so it's definitely encourage people to ask questions. That's always kind of what I've been taught, and through my parents and hand down. It's like I'd rather look like an idiot for a minute than like hours trying to figure something out without having to ask somebody.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, in a LARPing environment, there should be no question you can't ask, and if a game has to pause for a moment because someone doesn't understand what's going on, that's okay. It's better for them to get caught up than to feel just lost and like, what am I even doing here? That's the last thing I want out of any LARP event, is for a player to go, I don't know why I'm here. Everyone should feel involved. Everyone should feel like they're playing a part in that story. And if not, then we got to find a way to find their niche, for players that don't want to get involved in combat, a game should really try to have more options for those players that don't want to get in combat, need to have other options, either classes that allow them to go down a non-combat path, or crafting, whatever it is. There's all kinds of creative solutions out there, but it's important to always have something for everybody, because everybody has their own wants in LARP. There's so many different directions of path you can go with it. It's important to try to cover, try to be more open to every type of player, I guess.
Right. No, I completely agree. Just kind of going back to one of the things you mentioned, probably sometime in the 90s, I was going to one of the local community colleges here, and I had a little bit of green left on my ear that apparently, like when I took the student ID picture, which just happened to be like that Monday, and I was like, uh-oh. And I was like, I mean, so for a while I played one that works back,
Mm-hmm.
And we had the full orc baron. We were really excited about that. That was a big thing for us. So those types of things happen.
Stage makeup, I have had to use that. Yeah, I'm part of a theater group, and stage makeup, because what do you do at that point? I mean, other than just completely come clean about it. And that point, it gets even weirder. They get called out with makeup. So I've had to cover that one a couple times before. It happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, it was actually it was like a winter event. So like going to school, I actually had like a coat. Like it wasn't seen, but like I noticed it in the picture. I was like, oh, crap.
Yeah. But I know it's probably everyone knows it, but yeah, you get that little reminder. I got to make sure I get that makeup off a little better next time.
So let me ask you another question. It's a little bit more of kind of a rules question. I'm not sure how much I mean, I guess you deal with rules. You're on staff and you've created a game. How do you deal with a player base that has levels, low levels and super high levels, where you have this mixture that you have to make everybody happy, present a challenge for everybody. But there's some people obviously the high level stuff would wipe the floor with the newer players, and it's not a challenge for others.
It's definitely a challenge. It's just a few years ago, I was in an environment, I was, general managing in a game where we had players from, level 3 to 120, and it's hard, and what you do at that point is you shoot for that low to middle range, kind of there. We geared towards that, roughly 20th level kind of character, because we try to get people up to that teens pretty quickly through new player stuff and try to work with them. But yeah, we geared for for the people that mid teens to mid 20s, that kind of range there. The high levels will entertain themselves, honestly, and that's the thing, is that and give them some big things to beat on, sure, and give them some challenges at times, and when you do that, you gotta go more on the defensive, right? You don't need monsters that can cause tremendous amount of damage, because a newer player is going to see that and go, nope, not going anywhere near that. But if you can do it more of you give them a lot more defense, a lot more body, a lot more armor, and those kind of things, where you can have more of just a throw down fight for a longer time. It feels more of a challenge, but you're not killing all the low levels. They feel like they're playing a part, and I also encourage, try to steer away from, monsters that always take magic to hit and everything else, because those lower levels haven't built up to that, right away, necessarily. So, give them, give those players, the opportunity still to play a part in that higher level stuff, because the higher levels will entertain themselves. They've been doing this long. If they're that high level, they've been doing this long enough. They're not going anywhere. They like where they are. They're doing what they're doing, and you've got to gear towards the middle, towards middle and lower end.
Sounds good. Another question. I know that you've kind of played games that had some pretty active PvP. How do you feel about that? Or is there better ways to handle that? Or
so I think PvP in a game is something that is not necessary, but I like it in a game, and I like it not because I want to run around and kill people. It gives players an option, so it feels like their character can have a means to an end if that's what it comes to. Of course, obviously, it's a role play game. You want people to role play through things, work things out, and try to solve things. But if that fails, well, what do you do? Sometimes it comes to blows, and that's okay, as long as you've got a game that is geared for being able to accept that and handle that in a positive way. And I think it's important, if you're gonna have PvP. This is something that a lot of games have started to add recently, is the ability to kind of check in with people. I'm call a check-in system kind of scenario. Where you can kind of make sure people are okay with the encounter, and they're not being feel like they're being bullied in some way out of play, or don't feel like this is too much. This is my anxiety's not handling this. I got to get away from this. And so you got to have a way to handle that kind of stuff. But beyond that, I think it can be healthy for a game as long as you're not driving the PvP. And that's where I think games have gone wrong, and games I've been involved with have gone wrong, where they have really tried to push players to fight each other. If players choose to do that, that's players' choice, and I'm okay with that. But plot should not be out there specifically pitting groups of players against each other. Now, you want to put out an issue that one group feels one way about and another group feels another way, strongly way about, and they get in conflict. Sure, that's fine. I have no problem with that. And I think there's some healthy, animosity animosity can create some healthy encounters about that.
yeah,
But you just don't. You should not force that in some way.
No, that sounds great. Actually, to be honest, some of the games I've been playing, they've been doing their best to dissuade people from PvP, but that runs into its own issues. Like of how do you deal with certain things once it gets to a certain point. But to each their own. That's why there's different games with different rules and different ideas.
Absolutely. If PvP is the last thing anyone wants to be involved with, then they certainly should pick a LARP that does not involve PvP. And there's something to be said for that too. I've played LARPs that that was not outlawed, but it was strongly discouraged to PvP. And that's okay. You just got to know that going in, the kind of game you're playing, and then kind of play within those realms. It's okay to push the limits with your creativity and your creativeness and all that. But if it's a game that just doesn't, isn't geared toward what you want to do, don't force the game. It's never going to go well. Find the game that fits you the best.
Right. No, that's probably the best advice possible. With that being said, like, is there, we've been talking for a little bit over an hour and 20 minutes, and it's been a great conversation. Really enjoyed it and appreciate it. Is there anything you want to, tell people about any of your characters, any secrets, anything like that people didn't know that maybe you want to share? If not, that's fine too.
I like leaving the secrets. Most of the secrets are other people's secrets, and I don't want to share their secrets.
Let's not do that. But
and where I come, where I've been, I know a lot of deep secrets, and I just rather not step in the realms I'm not shouldn't be. But
no worries.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I just meant, NPCs or anything like that, or things people didn't know that you wanted them to know. Now, again, if you have active characters, that's a thing. A lot of, or me and some of the other people that I've interviewed and spoke with, like, the games no longer exist, so it's a little bit easier. But
yeah, I get it. And I certainly have those scenarios. I just, to be honest with you, I try not to kind of go back and dwell on the old stuff too much. So I like to look to the future, really, and not dwell on the old stuff when it comes to those kind of things.
Sounds good. Is there anything else that you want to kind of share about any of your characters, or games or game style that, now that you kind of have a little bit of an audience?
All right. Well, open forum for whatever I can think of here. Again, the one thing I go back and stress is I really want to see, LARPs, kind of reach out to each other, really start to support each other. Over the years, LARPs have really, not all, but a lot of LARPs have had walls put up around them, or if you go to this LARP, then I don't want you here because now you're not being loyal to my LARP and blah 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 and that kind of crap, and that should all go away. LARP should be something we all can go and have fun with and enjoy and intermingle within those communities. There's something to be learned from each other. There's something to be shared with each other. I think it's kind of sad that that's kind of been kind of isolated for in the years past for a lot of groups. And I think it's something that I personally want to see people come together more. It's a goal of mine to try to play a lot of these other LARPs and try to get out there and kind of feel what other people are doing. We all learn from each other. Why not help each other make a better environment for all of us? And I think that's where we need to go with LARP right now. Is that more of a community as a whole? There's lots of small communities, and that's great, and we all live within those. But those communities need to be willing to come together at times and really kind of support each other, and both in game and in the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this: if I were to, and this is something I've been kind of planning, if I were to reach out to a couple of other, owners or people that are high up in, hold on, I'm sorry. What's Hugo's virtue or vice?
Thanks, Keith. So Hugo's my new character. We've only been going for about 4 events so far, but what's his vice? Well, first of all, Hugo's from the swamp and he's an alligator farmer. So every time I get a chance, I bring up alligators all the time. That's my slight annoyance to everybody. I like to do is the find some way to relate alligator farming to everything we do.
Nice.
I'd say right now, Hugo. So when I started this character, I had played everything out there. I've scholars, fighters, Templars, just about everything. The one thing I never really played was a rogue, or any kind of roguey kind of character. And in our game, we don't have classes. It's an open system, but I still kind of built it a little bit on that kind of design. So I say my one real way to thing I can't resist, I guess, would be the lock box, and that's the one thing I've already decided. I'm a sucker for a mimic or anything that it could be treasure. Well, I got to try, and so I'm Fey oriented. I've got, so it's one of those. Yep, I can't help it. I've got to gotta go. I gotta go open the lock. I can see what's inside the box. So that's what would be my my one weakness probably.
Nice.
Gotta know what's on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Let's see between communities, different life sides, a hobby that's empowering to share. Awesome. Also, we had Angie mention, supporting each other, in other ways. So, I guess what I was going to say is, I would love to see about possibly getting a couple of different owners on, and they were just kind of talking about LARPs and ideas and concepts in general. And, if that would be of interest to you to be a part of. So, for example, Angie, I know she knows a couple of people that might be running
and I know Angie too. Angie and I have known each other for many years. I haven't seen Angie in a while.
I mean, I think we all met at the same LARP.
But yeah. But no, I would be absolutely interested in getting involved in something more like that. I think, especially these high concepts of how to be more inclusive to people and some of those kind of things. I think it'd be really interesting to have those kind of level conversations between, game managers and LARP owners and whatnot, and see how we can make our communities better. How do we make them healthier? What are the people doing for insurance? I mean, there's some basic things, there that, I know a lot of LARPs are starting, if they hadn't been, they're now getting into making sure that we're covered with insurance and things like that. And having perks for our players that kind of go along those lines, especially now that we've been going through COVID, how are you doing safety protocols? We just had an event last weekend, but it was our strictest, protocol. We required vaccines, required masks, when you're indoors around other players. So, but not every place the same, but sharing that kind of information, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked, I think is important for people at that level to share that, so that can help each of the communities.
Sounds good. No, I definitely agree. Anything we can do to keep people safe and yet happy and still having fun playing games and creating stories and relationships, that's really what's important.
Absolutely.
Brian, I appreciate your time. Is there, anything that you'd like to, make people aware of that they might not be aware of?
Well, obviously, I mentioned weapon stuff earlier. I just want to kind of give that a quick plug. If anyone wants to come check out some of the work I've been doing, they can go to mountainbeararmory.com. Takes you to my Facebook page. Hopefully, we'll have a website, a full-fledged website sometime this year. But right now, it's just Facebook-oriented. But look through, take some pictures. If you need some custom stuff done, we'd be happy to help you out with that.
There's some beautiful stuff there too, by the way.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you. And I'll hopefully be posting some more pictures. I've been busy lately and haven't posted the latest projects. So hopefully later this week I'll get some more stuff up there. But the other project I'd really like to talk about is is my latest project that I've been working on, which is called Awakening. It's a new LARP we started. Of course, like a lot of things, we started things right at the beginning of 2020, and everyone knows how that went. So 2020 got canceled. Last year, we had a very limited schedule, had to cancel some there too, but hopefully this year we'll get moving forward. But we've got a new LARP that is very community driven. It's, and no one makes money on our LARP, which is what I think, is one of our new tests we're kind of trying out is there's no owner, in a sense, there's a board that manages it, but all the money goes back into the community, goes back into the game. So that way, and really we've done it. So it's a shared resource, is the way we kind of set up the business. Everyone's coming together to play a game. So all the stuff belongs to everybody. Is the way we do it. So no one's making a profit, but it's a great group of players. One of the best group of players I've ever played with. And we're having a great time. So I really want to, hopefully people can come check us out and come have a good time with us. We really are trying to be supportive of anybody, any new people coming in and making sure they feel part of it. Everything I've talked about is the same kind of concepts that we were really trying to push in this community. And so hopefully we can help drive, LARPing in that direction the best we can.
Awesome. Well, I mean, that's great to hear. Please make sure to give me that information. I'll go ahead and put that in the notes so that people can come and find your website and find out more about some of your.
And Awakening is on LFG Nexus, so people can find us there. We have at least our March events already listed there. I'm going to be getting the rest of the dates up this week for the rest of the year. So, or they can find us on awakeninglarp.com. And go from there. So
just to kind of piggyback on what Brian was saying is that on LFG Nexus it's here for all types of gamers. We've been here. You can see the little scroll thing. We want to encourage LARPs to come and normally we charge for a business page, but I don't want to do that anymore. Not for LARPs. For it's my heart, my community, and sign up, reach out to me. If you're a LARP owner, we can get you, a business page. Normally it costs about $25 a month. We'll take care of it for free. You'll be able to post your events, and we'll kind of have a little bit of a LARP area where you can also have, your players have little pages where they can talk and connect with one another. You'll of course have your own business page where, again, feel free to upload pictures or videos or things like that. If you guys ever do any like live streaming of any sort, we do actually work with, here we go. We do actually work with Twitch, where we can pull in Twitch feeds as well. So, we'd love to have, any of the LARPs wherever on the website. And again, all it does is it gives people more ways to find out about what you guys are doing. But, Brian, thank you so much for, being on here.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great.
Yeah, no, it's been great catching up and kind of, learning a little bit more about what's going on. We definitely should, actually hang out in person, if you're up for it, maybe sometime here in a little bit. I know that Spencer and possibly Jeff, we might be able to get a few other people too that we used to play with.
Some old friends. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, with that said, just to let you guys know, if you don't mind holding on, Brian, we next week we have Debbie Rickerson Pass, who will be coming on. She also played, the game that we were playing, and she has some different insights, kind of a little bit more of a female perspective. The week after that, currently I don't have anyone scheduled. I might take it off. It's been about 5-6 weeks I've been doing this. The week after that, we have another woman. Again, she's from up north, from Boston, where there's also a lot of games. That's where actually LARPing kind of came from, or at least the the U.S. version. And I met her at one of the LARPs down here, and she was quite incredible, just her verbals and stuff like that. And she has a lot of experiences, again, to get a little bit more of a female perspective as well. So, we thank you very much for coming on. Please feel free to check out Oxygen Nexus. Please, check out awakenings.com and, Bear Mountain Armory. And, thank you guys for your time. So if you guys need us, again, please, if you don't mind, going to that Google form. It should be at the top. It's telling us, what you think, if there's things you do better, worse, whatever, just to get some sort of feedback. But again, thanks everybody. You guys have a great night.
Everyone have a good night.